I'm sure you've heard me talk about 26shirts.com before, but just in case you haven't, let me fill you in. At 26 Shirts, they sell different limited edition sports-themed t-shirts every 2 weeks. After a shirt's prospective 2-week run is over, the design is retired and never sold again. They are operating out of Buffalo and now also offer options in Chicago. For every shirt sold, $8 is donated to a family in need. Not to a major charity or foundation, but to an actual family or individual in need. To show our support here at Chasing Cinema, when you buy a shirt, we will automatically put you into a drawing to win the next shirt free. That's right. You buy a shirt, $8 goes to help a family or individual in need, and you get a shot to win the next shirt absolutely free from Chasing Cinema. So go to www.26shirts.com and buy a unique Buffalo Sports Design t-shirt, help a great cause, and also get entered to win the next shirt absolutely free. Again, that's 26shirts.com, because you have the ability to help a complete stranger just because it's the right thing to do. www.26shirts.com. Help someone now. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're listening to us on iTunes. That way, you don't have to lift a finger in each episode that we make of this podcast. It will automatically download to your iPad, your iPhone, your iPod, any sort of device that you're listening to your podcasts on. Also, if you're not an iTunes person, that's okay. I forgive you. Head over to YouTube and you can hit subscribe there. And not only do you get all of our movie news updates, not only do you get all of our trailer reviews and video reviews of any movie coming out, you get our podcast, that's right, available to you. If you are an iTunes person, you should probably go to YouTube anyway and hit subscribe. But don't forget to hit subscribe on your iTunes page first, because no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, Chasing Cinema should be implemented somehow, some way. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jacob Tiranno. I'm joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louie Coruzzolo.
And people say I talk way too fast.
I can see that. I think it's a good pace, because you don't want to be too slow, especially you're narrating, you're leading the way. You don't want to be a monotone, slow pace for people to sleep.
No one wants me to talk and be like, "Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this evening's episode of ChasingCinema.com's podcast. Today we'll be exploring different elements of film and cinema."
Yeah.
You know, where's
the heart of lecture? No, nowhere. What you're doing, it's like a shot of 5-hour energy.
I know it. Louie, how have you been, sir? What have you been up to? What's going on in your life?
I have been. That's about it. Just, hanging in there. And that's half the battle, I guess. Same old, same old. My life's very boring, very mundane. So, I don't feel like dealing with my day-to-day lives would be so interesting, especially on this podcast,
Yeah.
Especially you know me. My life is just life.
Yeah. That's what happens when you go to school as much as you do.
Exactly. But I've been trying to watch a few things here and there. I've accomplished that. And that's about it. How about you? You are always busy in some capacity.
I'm always busy in some capacity, but sometimes I'm so busy I have nothing really interesting to tell, because the busyness that I am busy with is in fact nonsense busyness that's not interesting enough to share. Mm-hmm. This week was a two-timer at the movie theaters. Excuse me. We went on Tuesday midnight premiere to Entourage, and then last night was the premiere of Spy. So we're going to be reviewing both those films later on tonight, but first Louie and I are just going to kind of chat about something, and we'll figure out what we're going to talk about. Probably some movie news. I don't know. Let's just see where this conversation takes us, because if me and Louie have not watched anything this week... Well, actually, that's not true. I revisited a really, really, really great classic. Transporting back to 1931, I watched one of the first really audience-embraced gangster pictures of all time. I watched the movie that really kind of defined the career of Edward G. Robinson, and this movie is known as Little Caesar. Louie, have you seen this picture before? Have you heard of it? What do you know? What do you not know?
Of course I've seen it. I've actually wrote a nice essay that's on ChasingCinema.com about Little Caesar. So, there's that.
Have you?
But it's a yeah.
I thought it was on Scarface.
It is on Scarface. But I did one for that's not published. I get confused.
Yeah.
I did write one that's not published on Little Caesar. And yes, the one that's published is on Scarface. Very nice. You know my work better than I do.
Yep.
But I did write one on Little Caesar, and it is a very good gangster picture. Probably one of my favorite old ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because Edward G. Robertson, there's something about him that's still somewhat timeless. You know, a lot of older films, especially in that era, could be dated, and some of it is. But there's this some aspect about his performance in that one that's still kind of chilling and like interesting. Like that's like the main one that's set up, I think, for a lot of gangster films to follow.
It was definitely a movie that kind of began an era and, you know, really marked a career. Edward G. Robinson, after that movie, would still go on to do that type of gangster role. I don't know, excuse me. Up until, I want to say, the 60s. That would eventually represent his whole career. And it is a great movie. It does hold up. Recently, they released a Gangsters picture anthology on Blu-ray, and it came with Public Enemy, Petrified Forest, I believe White Heat, and Little Caesar. So it was the first time I actually seen this film on Blu-ray, and it was amazing. It looked beautiful. Louis, I'm not sure what you watched it on, but
Blu-ray as well, the same set.
Collection, yeah.
Yeah.
So it also came with some really great features, but I really got into that. I was really excited to watch that movie and really kind of watch how well it's been restored and, you know, how the remastered version looks, and it looks brand new. But that is a great movie. I was reading a lot about it, and it's a movie that I feel like, though isn't as well known as a lot of pictures that we talk about from that far beyond or that far back, it is one that should be, because it has a lot of elements and a lot of qualities that hold up to today and really tell a great story about a character and, you know, greed and kind of taking over.
Absolutely.
The movie Little Caesar follows a character who finds him and his best friend find themselves joining a group of gangsters, and basically Rico, the main character, taking over little by little until he eventually just becomes a huge mob boss, essentially. And he's finally kind of growing and just pushing boundaries, and the guy who's not afraid to step on anyone's toes finally rises to power. And it's a very traditional gangster movie in the sense that we have to watch a rise and fall. So watching the rise and fall of Enrico Caesar Benedello. No, I don't remember if that's right or not. Is it? It's yeah. It's Caesar Enrico Bendello. I think.
If you say so, I don't remember the full name. Rico, yes.
Yeah, it's Rico, but it's Enrico. Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Anyway, guys, if you could watch this movie somehow, some way, I'd really, really recommend it. It is a classic gangster movie. It is one, in that time frame, these movies were so beautiful, and these movies really sparked a huge era in cinema. I mean, gangster pictures were mainly, coming out of Warner Brothers, very popular for them, and there are box sets upon box sets of these gangster pictures that not many people have seen, and luckily, I purchased them when I was very young and just kind of went through them constantly, just learning about all these characters and absorbing all of this. And some great, and some, like Louis said, can stand the test of time. Others struggle a little bit, but this one is definitely one that stands the test of time.
Yes. And I put up the short essay I wrote for the class to prove everyone I'm not crazy. And I'm just going to read a little quote I got from one of the books. One of the biggest contributions that Little Caesars brought to the genre was putting the gangster's name in the title. By using the gangster's name as the title, Little Caesar became the first gangster picture to establish a gangster as a tragic hero. The use of the gangster's name as the title of the film, which appears to have originated with Little Caesar, is common in the genre and is also reminiscent of practice of naming tragic plays for the central figure. And you could think of Babyface Nelson, Magdor, Machine Gun Kelly, Dillinger, Al Capone, the rough, toughy gangster, Bonnie and Clyde, and so forth. So it's definitely, and there's much more, contributions this film has made. That again, I think in one of the films, I think it was Departed's special feature,
Mm-hmm.
that Scorsese talks about Little Caesars and Public Enemy and Scarface, and how he tried to use some of those motifs and themes found in the film and try to include it in The Departed. Like, for instance, I think Scarface, before someone died in this original Scarface, there was always an X appearing somewhere, and in The Departed, he tried to pay homage to it.
Pay homage.
Yeah.
Pay homage.
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 Yeah, that's a fancy way to saying it.
Whatever way suits your fancy. Absolutely. This movie does kind of have qualities that are still seen in films today. And, it's so interesting to see how that rise and fall of that genre has went as well. Gangster pictures have always been, available and present in cinema. Though we don't get them, as I would say right now, we don't get them as often as I think people would really like. They are in and out and always kind of around. For instance, we had the Gangster Squad, we had Public Enemies, we have the upcoming Black Mass film, and Legend, which stars Tom Hardy as twins. He's going to be playing two different roles.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really wonderful, but I mean, in the early 1930s, this genre was basically what owned Hollywood to a degree, and really, like Louis said, this was the movie that really kind of captured audiences to kind of really care about the gangsters and not necessarily root for the bobbies, as they would say in England.
Bobby!
Hey, Bobby! But that's all that I've seen this week, I believe. I have a terrible memory, so that easily could be misinformed. Hello? Yeah.
Oh, what was that?
I don't know. Oh, this conversation's going awry.
Well, I could tell you about what I've watched this week.
Go ahead. What have you been watching this week?
Well, I've been through a lot of my films. I've rewatched Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood's Oscar winner from 1992.
What made you do that?
Pops and I decided we wanted to watch a movie, and he didn't remember watching it or seeing it, so he wanted to say, yeah, put it on. Can't go wrong with old Clint Eastwood. Mm-hmm. Kicking A. So we popped that in, and it still is very good, especially if you like Westerns. But I think it lost a little effect on me, like then compared to the first time I watched it. First time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This time around, it was still really good, but it kind of loses its effectiveness. I don't know if it's the time or there's been other Westerns out since then that emulated what it tried to do maybe a little better, because I'm thinking of True Grit. I saw a lot of True Grit in it, mm-hmm. which obviously, there was original True Grit, but I'm talking about this one. And then I was thinking about the other films that was up for the Oscars, and I thought, and A Few Good Men got nominated the same year. And I've seen that, and I think that holds up better now than Unforgiven. Especially with the whole, military cases still going on. I think that's, emotionally more available than to disconnect to Clint Eastwood's, mysterious old gunslinger turned good, turned bad again.
I remember watching Unforgiven really late. I don't think I watched Unforgiven probably till I was in high school, or probably getting out of high school, maybe even. And I remember enjoying the film, but I was never head over heels with it. I thought it was solid. I think it does have really great qualities. But it's not a movie that I was like, oh man, this is. I don't own that movie. I guess you do, right? Or are you on Netflix?
Blu-ray.
Okay, yeah, yeah. See, I don't own that movie. At least I don't think I do. And it's not one that I've recently or have ever had the urge to revisit. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it was bad. I think it was solid. I think it was, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman were both gave solid performances in it. But I don't remember very much of it, and I just don't have the urge to revisit it. So maybe I wasn't as a fan as much as I think I was.
Yeah, like again, there's a lot to like about the film. I'm not saying it's a bad film, but at the same time, I liked it a lot.
I do own Unforgiven.
I liked it a lot better the first time around. And
Yeah, I think so too.
And then watching it again, it was very slow moving, slow paced, and they were trying to build up the tension. And finally, at the end of the film, when they have the big suit out, it does live up to the hype, and it's very reminiscent of Taxi Driver. How Taxi Driver is a slow build, and bam, we have this epic implosion. But it doesn't come off as strong as Taxi Driver, you know. And it's still worth the watch. I'm not a big Western fan to begin with. I know you prefer more Westerns than I do.
I am a huge fan of the Western genre, and I'm hoping for a big comeback eventually. No, I really love Western movies. They, as well as gangster pictures, were huge in that time frame of early cinema. Well, not necessarily early cinema, but early on in these in the 30s and continually and up into the 60s and 70s, even debatably, but a very, very important genre, and one that I absolutely love when it's done well. I think people are easily turned off by time frames and period pieces like that, but there are really great Western movies out there. And I think a reason why I'm attracted to them as well is because I'm also a huge fan of Asian cinema, specifically Japanese cinema, which a lot of the samurai stories that were made in Japanese cinema were eventually brought over to the States and adapted into cowboy movies. So I think that plays a big role for me as well. The Magnificent Seven, that is basically a rehashing of the Seven Samurai. I believe it's a fistful of dollars. It could be a few dollars more. I get the two confused. Is basically a rehashing of a film called Yojimbo. And so there's a lot of Japanese influence in our Western genre, and I think I have a connection to it because of that. But Western films are great. The John Ford Stagecoach is one of the most effective movies ever made. Trust me, John Ford is great. If you don't believe me, Citizen Kane was made by a man named Orson Welles. Citizen Kane has been hailed as one of the greatest films ever made. When people ask when people ask Orson Welles, the very young director who made that movie, what did he do to prepare for this? He said, I watched Stagecoach over and over again. So just to give you guys a little tip, if you've never seen it, that's another one to go venture out and check out. Great movie.
Yeah. And speaking of the Japanese cinema connection to Western pictures, after I watched the film, I tried to look up some interesting information about Unforgiven, the history behind it. And I found that in 2013, a Japanese director adapted Unforgiven and made it into his own Japanese film with Ken Watanabe in it. And
really?
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Do you remember the name off the top of your head?
It's Unforgiven still, and then Unforgiven in the Japanese title. Okay. I'm not gonna pronounce it.
Yeah.
But if the tagline on IMDb, just as Clint Eastwood star making spaghetti western, they talk about Yojimbo, but this follows an old gunslinger, like the same storyline as Unforgiven. But, it's pretty cool.
I'll have to go back and check it out. Yeah, man, absolutely. There is a huge connection between those two genres, which might be strange a little bit, but essentially the samurai, I would say, is the equivalent to an American cowboy, the Japanese samurai, and what the idea of samurai is, and the good doer gunslinger is essentially the same thing. So there is a lot of connections, and if you've not seen any of the films mentioned, do yourself a favor and go check them out, because trust me, they're all worth it.
And before we move on, the biggest takeaway from watching Unforgiven again is, man, I do miss Gene Hackman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very underrated. And I know he's in retirement, so I can't tell you his last film. I'm thinking the one with Ray Romano, Mooseport. If that's the name of it.
I think there's something after that.
No, that's one of the last ones.
Really?
Yeah. Runaway Jury.
Welcome to Mooseport was his last year, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been a long time for Gene Hackman, but watching him in Unforgiven, man, that man knows how to act. It was just great watching him.
The Birdcage.
Amazing.
He's great in that movie. He's great in a lot of movies, obviously.
Yes.
But we could go on and talk about that for days. But like I said, there are two movies that Louie and I saw this week, and we're going to talk about both of them in pretty much in depth. The first one, comes from HBO Films, which is a spinoff of one of the HBO series known as Entourage. Louie, briefly, no, you don't even got to brief it. How's your relationship with Entourage been? Are you an avid fan? Have you watched the show? Are you a diehard Entourage fanatic? Where is your loyalty lie?
See, I kind of have a funny relationship with Entourage because
How so?
Because back in the day, I don't know, granted, it premiered in 2004, so maybe a couple years afterwards, and we're talking 2006 now, 2007. You enjoy the show very much, and you talked about it somewhat, and I kept dismissing it because I was stuck in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's my HBO comedy show. I don't need Entourage. I don't need Sex and the City. I don't need anything. Leave me alone with the Entourage. And I know you kept watching it, and then as the series came to a close, in the final couple seasons, you kind of stopped watching it. Mm-hmm. And that's when I picked up. I caught a marathon one night on HBO, and I was watching it. I'm like, you know what? It's not bad. It's actually pretty enjoyable. And so I caught most of the episodes. I can't say if I watched every season, but I've seen majority. I know the characters. I know the storyline, and I saw the best moments. I enjoy it. I can't say I'm an avid fan. I wasn't highly anticipating this film. Maybe if this came out like a couple months after the series finale, maybe I would have been more intrigued because I watched the final season. Mm-hmm. But 4 years passed, and I moved on already. I never rewatched them. I never looked back. But I thought, it's an interesting take on Hollywood, and the chemistry between the four main guys does provide a lot of good laughs.
As Louis said, I started watching the show kind of late. I think it was like third season. Had just come out to DVD, and I was working at the video store, and everyone's like, oh no, you need to watch this show. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. Bought the first season, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Like Louis said, I thought there was some great comedy to it. I thought there were some good performances, and I was hooked, just like a lot of the fans that had went to the movies this week to watch Entourage's movie. I thought it was very interesting. It was talking about something that I loved. It was talking about movies, but in a very glamorized fashion. We were watching these extravagant lifestyles, watching these group of buddies that I'm sure everyone can relate to, that they have a friend like this, they have a friend like that, going through these struggles and then, really kind of achieving success, as well as having some really great side characters who were good at delivering comedy and a lot of celebrity appearances. And I was a fan of the show, and eventually I think what happened was I hit season 8, which is the final season, and I just didn't buy it because what I wouldn't, this is, I don't know if they ever did Netflix. I don't think they weren't ever on Netflix, but I would just buy them as they would come out. I wouldn't watch them on HBO, but I would buy them as they come out. And I didn't buy the last season. I actually didn't buy the 7th season until like a month or two later, and I was like, oh man, I gotta watch this before I forget. I bought it, and it took me a little bit to watch it. I sat and watched it, and I felt like, ooh, I kind of remember, I forgot some of the stuff, but I quickly, jumped right back in. And then the show ended, and I was still feeling the same way, of enjoying myself and enjoying these characters. We've invested in them for now 7 years. And season 8 came out, and I just never ended up buying it. And, to me, though I'm sure that there was just things keeping me from buying it at first, at the end of the day, I just never had the huge incentive to go out and buy it and watch it. So I guess I was kind of partially over it by then, to the point where I didn't feel the need to finish the show. And, it's very rare because when I start something, I really like to finish it. But there have been a handful of shows or things that besides movies, I always finish the movie. Where I stop and I just kind of don't feel the need to go back to it. The only thing that comes to mind right now is Hunger Games Catching Fire, the book. It was a book that I put down and I never picked back up. But yeah, so I've just kind of been going along, not knowing how Entourage has ended. And at the same time, telling people, don't tell me what happens, I'll watch it for myself. But every time I talk to someone, they always tell me that it gets really weird in the 8th season, and it's a little bit disappointing, and, there's not this great finale. So I guess by, letting time pass, watching other things, I never got around to it.
Yeah.
Then I hear they wanted to make a movie. I really didn't pay much attention to that because of how many shows say they're always going to make a movie afterwards and they never do. But lo and behold, we fast forward to this time frame and there is a movie. There is a show that's going to continue on from the series. Now, this show ended in, what did you say, Louie, 2011-ish, 2012?
2011.
Mm-hmm. So 2011. So we're supposed to pick back up not too long after the series finale. And so I was nervous about being lost, but the whole promotion for this movie is that you don't need to see the show, which is smart because that's how you get new viewers. Even though you're going to have a seedload of fans already of the show come in and bring their friends, it's good to make it understandable for everyone without having to see 8 seasons of a television show. So I went into this movie, and that's where I'll stop my origin story before we actually get into the review. Louie, you wrote the review for this movie. You watched it, not being a super big fan of the show. How did you feel about Entourage?
I thought Entourage did a good job in its execution. I think Doug Ellen, the showrunner, creator of Entourage, did his best job to pick up where they left off 4 years ago. And for the most part, they did. It feels, an hour and 40 sitting in the theater feels like an extended version of an episode. There's even a title sequence, the same theme song, same cast members, and they picked up right away from where they left off. So I give them much, much credit on how they executed it, because a lot, making a film from a TV show could be very difficult. And we've had a lot of failures in the past, a lot of successes. So, it's a mixed bag. So with that regard, I think for the most part, they pulled out what they intended to do. And that is make a Entourage episode movie, So much credit for that. But not being an avid fan, a diehard fan, it kind of took me out of the picture somewhat. Because they kept saying throughout this whole promotional tour, oh, you don't need to be a fan. You don't need to be a fan. Watch it. You'd be right in the Entourage. And for the most part, newcomers to this show, movie, will find enjoyment in this film. There are plenty of laughs, plenty of cameos. The plot line's not too difficult, at all difficult to understand. Oh, you won't be lost. There's a right away, what type of characters you're dealing with. By the same time, there are a few inside jokes, a few of how, the interactions with the characters and their fictionalized Hollywood works, where you might not appreciate it as a diehard fan would. And I think that's a major problem with this film, with what they made, is that, yes, it's funny. Diehards would love it. But for the casual goer, it's okay. It's, there's a few laughs here and there, but it's nothing special. And I think that's the main problem with what I had with Entourage. And the show in general, is that for a while they had nothing new to say, nothing more funny to say. They lost their comedic edge to a degree, and it's kind of the same retread we've been seeing in the later seasons of Entourage, where you get the same setup, it's a lot of recycled material, a lot of cameos, a lot of TNA, all this, and it's funny for a while, but it's just, okay, you know what? I'm over it. Say something new. Show me something important. And in this one, it doesn't. It plays it safe, and that's a problem. Another problem I had particularly with Entourage is, they're trying to make it in Hollywood, and there are challenges throughout the seasons and in this movie. It's not easy for them, but at the same time, the challenges they face is never too difficult. Here's a little minor problem here. Okay, but it's more okay.
It's more like Vinny Chase isn't getting his way. How do we fix it?
Yeah, and they fix it 10 times out of 10 times. I can't recall like one. Oh my goodness, that's such a big challenge. I'm never afraid that they're going to lose everything, and they always hit at it.
So
kind of like, go ahead.
Do you remember? I have a quick question.
Yes.
Do you remember how the show ended?
Yes.
Where was Vinny Chase when the show ends?
Vinny Chase was going off to get married.
Okay, so he was going to get married, like Like
Yeah,
that day?
like again, I haven't seen the season finale since it aired,
Mhm.
and I haven't gone back to watch it.
Yeah.
But he was getting married. I don't remember a wedding because the main finale was focused on Eric and Sloane's
Yeah.
relationship. And they were getting like Eric wasn't going to go with the boys. I was going to go with the boys to, I guess, maybe Vinny's bachelor party or whatever have you. And then all of a sudden they said, you know what, you need to go to Sloane. You need to get Sloane. And he gets Sloane and they go off to Paris together. Like that's how like the big ending, like Eric and Sloane are together. And Turtle, Vinny, and Johnny Dahmer are together doing their own thing. Like it was a separation of the two.
Gotcha. The reason why I bring it up is for something I didn't really notice because I think obviously I didn't watch the end of the film. But there is a man named Matt Singer who is a film reporter for Screen Crush, a great movie website, who is absolutely hilarious. I follow a lot of his work. I follow him on Twitter. And I'm going to read some of the stuff that he pointed out during this movie.
Okay.
Matt Singer tweeted out this. The Entourage movie is set a few months after the show ended in 2011. But features a lot of jokes and references to stuff in 2014, 2015. Oops. Yahoo Movies did a run-through of all the things that they did that were to be set. The show was supposed to be set at 8 months after the show ended, but these are the things that were said in the movie and referenced in the 2015 world. Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson references his Super Bowl win, which happened in February 2014.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been drafted yet.
Emily, the model in the movie, has a major role, and no one really knew her before she appeared in Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines video in March 2013. And Mark Wahlberg pops in a cameo and plugs his TV show The Wahlburgers, and jokes that he's doing additional work on Ted 3. Neither of those things should exist yet in the Entourage universe. I didn't notice that, and obviously, I think that's because I didn't finish the television show. But I mean, to me, that's just really that really kind of says something about the creative team behind it, and just the fact that they're just like, oh, we'll reference stuff now. Who cares?
See, I think for a show like Entourage to be successful,
it needs a reference.
Yes, it needs to be hip to the current events of today. So obviously, that's what you were alluding to, and that's why they did it. And obviously, it's back in 2011, but because Hollywood is so fictionalized and so, not too relatable to real life, that I think they could get away with doing this. Because, in their fictionalized universe, maybe Ted happened and the Super Bowl happened in 2011.
No, I don't buy that.
I don't think it's a major deal because they didn't, they didn't reference.
I don't think it's a major deal
in the movie.
I just think it's lazy writing.
2011, this is 2011. We're not reminded that's 2011 when the movie starts.
Well, the only way we could kind of go about that is the fact that we know that Vinny Chase's wedding ended in a certain amount of dates. And I don't know when he got married. That's why I was asking. But to me, granted, that's not one of my main criticisms of the film, but it's definitely something to just kind of note.
It's funny. It's ironic. And, there's a theory, maybe they time travel, and all this.
What? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, but it's, that's like not the biggest problem with the Entourage film.
Well, go on and tell me what the biggest problems are.
And again, it's, not saying anything new, not saying anything too funny that they haven't said already before. And that could irritate some diehard fans because, if I want to watch Vinny Chase try to get with, beautiful models or have commitment relationship issues with, beautiful models and actresses and deal with his relationship with Sloane, I could go back a couple seasons and watch it the first time and say, that was a good story arc. But when they use it again in the film, it's like you alluded to, it's kind of lazy. That's a big problem. The challenge in the film, again, they're faced with a major budget. Vinny Chase needs to make this movie. He's directing it. Ari's putting his name on the line, his reputation on the line for him. They're having difficulties with the budget, and they made a big deal. But, in the back of your mind, it's always going to work out. It's not that big of an issue. They don't make it seem too big of an issue, even though they want you to believe, this could be the end of all of their careers, And I think that's a shame because it'd be nice to see them face some real, difficulties and challenges. You know, they say this is high stakes, but it never really gets high stakes for me, at least.
Go on.
Yeah, so like those are my main issues. Like, say something new, say something funnier than you had before. Expand on the universe. Don't just revisit it. And they didn't expand on the universe, and that hurts the overall product. But other than that, you know, seeing the boys back in action, seeing the entourage is always kind of fun because you're reminded of how well they worked together for all those years. That was refreshing to see again. It's like visiting old friends again and say, "Oh yeah, I remember why I liked you in the first place." But by the end, it's like, okay, now I know why we kind of went our separate ways.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Piven is the MVP of the film. He is like the MVP of the show. Is he? So. I think so.
Over Kevin Dillon? I think they're neck and neck. I go back and forth.
Yeah, especially in this film, it's very close. But I think this Jerry Piven in Ari Gold, him yelling and him getting the whole suits, the phones, he really is Ari Gold. You know, there's so many funny moments. He has the biggest laughs of the film, almost. And then, like you said, but Kevin Dillon as Johnny Drama is amazing. He was so funny, and I think he has the best storyline in this film. And the most rewarding storyline. If you're a fan, you're going to absolutely love what they do with drama. Yeah. Because it's so rewarding. It's so funny. It's perfect.
It is rewarding, but I'm going to take that as a cue to kind of lead into what mine is, that it's rewarding, but all for just 2 seconds. My major issue, besides what Louie pointed out, I do think the movie didn't bring anything new to the table. I don't think it really stood above itself to say, we're doing a movie. We could be a movie, instead of just being a uncut of 2 couple episodes. And people say, oh, what's the big deal? That's what people want. Nah, well, if you want to be a movie, make it a movie. Make things feel rewarding. Show me these arcs in this movie now. And, I think that movie really lacked that. But my biggest problem above all was the fact that I felt this movie had no solution, no conclusion, no good ending. I felt this movie just felt so rushed to get to the credits that things just said, okay, well, forget about that. We'll just throw this in there to tell people this, that. I mean, like I said earlier when I was using those examples, that just kind of maybe looks at lazy writing. I think that also takes place in this factor that this movie really doesn't have a great conclusion. And, people say, oh, this is it. This is the final, this is your goodbye. But I'm not doubtful that they're not going to make another Entourage movie, but this movie tries to give us this really powerful send-off. There's this, where would we be? We should make a story about us, and then we have this like, we should all take a picture together to really emphasize the friendship and the journey that these guys have gone on. And it just feels so wasted, so rushed, and so poorly constructed that there's no emotional value to it whatsoever. I watched these characters for 7 years. Sure, I got kind of bored of them, but like Louis said, the show finished 4 years ago, which means that it probably took me 5 years ago because I didn't watch last season, so it's been a long time. I wanted to see these guys and see how they were doing, and it didn't pay off for me. It did not pay off for me. Like Louis said, if I wanted to see Ian in the relationship issues, if I wanted to see Vinny Chase not getting the way he wanted, this is all things I could watch in the show. Granted, people who like this show are going to enjoy this movie, but in all reality, this movie doesn't stand up to a Hollywood movie. It is just an episode on a big screen. And though you might enjoy it and though you might laugh, that movie cannot stand on its own.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking about, the funny parts maybe stand out a little bit, but there's nothing too memorable about the film that would make you say, you know what, I want to watch the Entourage movie again.
Absolutely.
I don't think that's not going to be uttered a lot.
Yeah, and
that's unfortunate.
And we laughed. Me and you both laughed. There were moments that we enjoyed, but at the end of the day, walking out of that theater, talking about it now, which is only 3 days later, I don't remember much of it at all. I'm already blurring the lines of what was the show, what was the movie, and what exactly was going on. I was not a fan of this movie. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was the worst thing I've seen this year. I think that you should watch it, of course. I think people will enjoy it. But to me, it was more of just the fact that this could have been a lot better, and I'm upset with the lack of effort put into this. At least from from what I've seen, there's a lot of lack of effort here on all parts. And, what, Louie, I would love for you to talk about what you concluded your review with on how we felt with the Entourage characters.
Perfect. Like, the whole movie wants you to be involved with the characters. Say, hey, come join us. You're going to love us. But at the end of the movie, you're still on the outside looking in and not part of the entourage. And that's so true for the newcomers. Like, even though I've seen them before and I watched their show, I didn't feel more connected with them after the movie. And that's what they should have focused on.
I felt connected with them, but I didn't want to be anymore. I was like, all right, I'm ready to let go. All right, this is over. Goodbye. See you later. I think that this movie does have its moments, but, beyond being on HBO and you catching a little bit of it, I don't think there's much to it. I think that this movie was a real disappointment for me.
Absolutely. And again, it feels like the show and the material, more importantly, is stuck in the mid-2000s.
Yep.
And it seems dated already.
It does.
And that's unfortunate.
That's going to wrap it up for our review for Entourage. If you want to read the full review that Louie kind of broke down, make sure to go to chasingcinema.com/entourage, then head over to youtube.com/chasingcinema, and you'll be able to find our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find me and James doing a video review of Entourage, he, on the other hand, really did enjoy this movie. So, to get another perspective, go check that out. Moving on. We have Spy. A film from the team of Paul Feig and Melissa McCarthy. Louie, unfortunately, did not see this movie. I did. I actually saw it twice. So Louie is going to play the question and answer as he used to, and he hasn't in a while, though, because he's been watching movies, luckily.
Yeah. So my first question kind of is definitely related to the movie, but not about the specifics of the movie. When most people think of the Dream Team, they think about the basketball team with Michael, Magic, Larry Bird, all those good guys that won the Olympic gold, which is fine. But when I asked my dear friend and leader of Chasing Cinema about the Dream Team, he won't give you that answer. He's going to give you a new Dream Team comedy composing of
Melissa McCarthy and Paul Feig.
And that kind of flabbergasted me because, granted, they have great work and they continue to work together. To label them a dream team is wow. It almost blew my mind back. I'm like, no way! I can't believe he just said it. So, please express your opinion on this and why you chose to label them two as a dream team.
I think because of not only the fact that they work well together, because most directors have muses, most directors have an actor or an actress that they really like to work with, but the caliber of their talent. Now, here's the tricky part. I think that these movies are really appreciated, but aren't as appreciated as they should be. Louie and I loved Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids on ChasingCinema.com has 4 out of 4 stars. It is easily one of the best comedies of the last decade. Paul Feig brought us that movie. And in doing so, he really shined a light on female comedians. Now, I'm not saying there's no such thing as female comedies in the past. I'm not saying there weren't pioneers like Joan Rivers and Roseanne Barr and many, hundreds. I know I'm forgetting some right now. I'm not mentioning some, but there's a lot. But there's something spectacular in how now there is a huge demand for this female-led comedy movie. Most comedies now either come in the form of your Seth Rogen's, your, Jonah Hill's, Hangovers,
Vacation
James
now.
Franco movie, or you have the female-led comedy, which could either be a buddy movie or these movies about friendship, and they both are equally in demand, but I think myself, amongst many people, lean towards these female comedians because it's fresh to see them on screen. They're delivering comedy on a newer level, and especially after Bridesmaids, we are realizing how many talented comedian women we have. I mean, not many people knew Kristen Wiig on the big screen when Bridesmaids hit. You know, they knew her from SNL. You know, now people knew Melissa McCarthy on the big screen. They knew her from Gilmore Girls and other television shows. Yeah, they made appearances in films, but nothing like this. And the reason why I call them a dream team is because I think Paul Feig is one of the best, if not the best, comedic directors working today. And I think Melissa McCarthy is one of the funniest comedian actresses working today. Oh, one of the funniest comedians working today, period, male or female. She is slapstick. She is in your face and full of physical comedy. I mean, she has a lot to account for. And she has really kind of embraced her kind of claim to fame and challenged herself and done more and more projects. She keeps herself busy, and I respect that. But there's something magical when these two team up. And both times, and we're going to get into the third now, have been solid. I mean, great. Bridesmaids obviously better than The Heat. The Heat was both funny, though. And I just think they work so well together that they really bring out the best in each other as director and actress.
And Ghostbusters coming out, and that's like another big test right there because...
So number 4, will be Ghostbusters. Yeah. And again, an all-female cast. Me and Louie said it before when this was a rumor that this needs to be Bridesmaids with those facts. Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully it will be. And I had the chance to sit down and talk to Paul Feig at CinemaCon, and the man is talented, and the man knows, a lot of stuff, and I enjoyed my short amount of time with him, and I truly believe that he is going to keep making these great comedies, and every person that he worked with just raved about how funny he is and just how well he could bring out the comedy aspects in them. So I was excited to see Spy. But that answers your question, yes?
Yeah, it's just big, a big, bold claim, and I do like Paul Feig. I do like his films. Hope he also worked a little with Parks and Rec and Nurse Jackie, which is another strong female-led show on TV. And recently there was an article written about him saying that he was offered to remake Ghostbusters, but he'd rather do it with a female cast. And he said, you know what, you could keep your all-male cast. I want a female cast, and that's that's good for him.
It's bold.
Good for us. And that's very bold and risky, and I'm happy he made that decision.
But, Paul Feig really has the way to shine a light on people. I think that he really brings out a different aspect in people. I mean, Rose Byrne, up until this point, I think wasn't known as being a comedian actress. I mean, I know, she was known, she was been around, but I think Paul Feig putting her in Bridesmaids and, now this film is really kind of shining a light on her comedic talents. He takes Jason Statham and uses him like no one has used him yet, and really kind of has him play, a spoof of himself and makes fun of the characters that has made him a household name, as Robert De Niro did in Analyze This. And now, instead of using the same girls he used from Bridesmaids, though he's bringing back some, he's even introducing us to more female actors that will hopefully bring us more really talented female comedians in the spotlight. I know there's a few from SNL that he's bringing in. I forget the entire cast.
He's bringing two from SNL. Kate McKinnon, who's getting rave reviews over on her work on SNL. People love her.
Absolutely hilarious.
So she could be the next Kristen Wiig type breakout from SNL to the big screen. We got Leslie Jones, who first was a writer on SNL, but now is on the cast, which she's going to only get more popular with her work. She's
also
very funny.
Yeah.
You have Melissa McCarthy as well. And then the final one, let me double check on her name. You have, Kristen Wiig is attached to this as well. Yeah. So it's, that's 4 strong comedy actresses right there.
Huge, yeah. I mean, and that movie to me sounds way more desirable than another Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but that's why, I call them a dream team, not because I think they're the best in the business, is like the greatest team ever. They I think they just bring out the best in each other, and their work has been very consistent, in my opinion.
Hey, you could be onto something because Spy looks like it's going to be a hit. if Ghostbusters is a hit, like we hope it is, and they continue to make other movies, that's, the 4 down, more to go. You never know.
I consider Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor a dream team. They only made 4 films together.
Yeah, and rightfully so. They're over, but
or was it 5? No, it was 4, right?
Another You.
Another You.
Counting Another You.
Stir Crazy.
Silver
See
Streak.
No Evil, Hear No Evil, and Silver Streak. So that's 4. Unless I'm forgetting one, but I think it's just 4.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. It's not so much quantity as much as it is quality.
Absolutely. So now let's get into Spy. Tell us a little bit about Spy.
Spy tells the story of Susan Cooper, who is a CIA analyst, who's desk-bound and kind of basically is the eyes and ears for her agent, who's played by Jude Law. She's watching him on a computer. She says, "Watch left." He shoots left. She's basically the brains of the operation. He is just there to be in a tuxedo and to look good and shoot. Though Melissa McCarthy always had dreams of being in the field and being an agent, her partner unfortunately falls off the grid. And when he does, she volunteers to go undercover to stop a very dangerous world's armed dealer. So, can Melissa McCarthy save her friend? Can he even be saved? And she finally gets the opportunity to go undercover, and of course, that just ensues a lot of makeup and costume hilarity.
Is it a spoof of the James Bond series and spy movies in general?
No. Paul Feig, and the reason why I'm probably saying that, though, is because Paul Feig really, really made it a point to tell us at CinemaCon that this movie is not a spoof. It is a movie that just so happens to be both a comedy and a spy film. And I respect that, and I get that. Now, granted, the intro to this movie, the opening sequence is definitely a James Bond tribute. And there are, the ideas of a spy movie. But I guess that doesn't necessarily that doesn't make it a spoof. Just because a genre has these qualities and a comedy does that doesn't necessarily make it a spoof. It wasn't making fun of particular things, It definitely wasn't a spoof, but it was a comedy that just so happens, I think people will assume it's a spoof, but I don't think it was. It wasn't making fun of the genre. It was involved in that genre, just so happened to be funny instead of serious.
Yeah. And I think the marketing for it hasn't done enough to separate the two facts. You've seen the trailers and TV spot, you could see why many people could think it's spoof.
The poster is her painted in gold, obviously being an homage to Goldfinger. So yeah. I could understand that. And, but I think hopefully people will be able to tell the difference once they see it, that it could definitely just be a comedy movie that just happens to be a spy movie. So
continue on your review. What did you like about it? How does it stand up to Bridesmaids in the Heat? And how good is McCarthy in this? I know you alluded to Jason Statham being really good. Just highlight the best parts of Spy. Why people would go out and see Spy.
This is a movie that's going to have you laughing. You're going to enjoy yourself. I mean, if you've enjoyed these films that I've mentioned thus far, there's no reason for you not to enjoy this movie. Not only can Melissa McCarthy get you laughing, she could also kick some really talented and very well actioned butt. I mean, there are a couple fight scenes with her that are just highly entertaining. There's one that takes place in a kitchen. It's absolutely hilarious. Like I said, I think she's one of the greatest comedians out there working right now. She is so physical, which isn't around. I mean, the physical comedian isn't something that's around anymore. Most people attribute themselves to dry humor and like Steve Carell humor and The Office humor and just being kind of witty or being very serious and funny. I mean, dry is the only way I really know how to describe it. But not many actors throw themselves on the floor like Jim Carrey did. I mean, you could watch Jim Carrey's old stand-ups and he would intro, say, hello, fall immediately on the floor, get back up. And that would just be his opening stint. Not so much anymore, obviously, as he's kind of doing his own thing and exploring the world in whatever way he has, in whatever way he does, I don't know, every time I see Jim Carrey, it seems like he's on this world expedition to find something, so. But Melissa McCarthy...
No, I just remember like his last appearance I saw was on
Letterman.
Letterman's last show, and he looked like has been exploring
Right?
something. Yeah.
But Melissa McCarthy just throws herself on the floor. She's eager to use her body and stunts as a sense of comedy. She, really plays up this type of role. But in this movie, she actually tones down. I've heard a lot of people kind of complain that she's too over the top, which I don't agree with, to be honest. I don't think she's really over the top. I think that her character's over the top and she plays them that way. But I think that's what makes her characters kind of entertaining. Nonetheless, she really kind of dials down in this movie and plays a character we could really kind of connect to, because before she's the funny, ass-kicking spy agent that we see later in the film, she is this woman who deeply cares about Jude Law, who she feels for. There's a heart-crushing scene between her and Jude Law that I won't really kind of reveal to, but it's just very disappointing for her. And I feel for her. She tries to project this confidence while being self-conscious. She is, complex in that way, and I think in a way that a lot of people can relate to her. And she plays more of a relatable role here, and I think that it just kind of shows her that she's not just a one-trick pony, though her movies are really, in the comedy genre, and she's playing these very funny funny characters. I've not seen her in St. Vincent, though.
Definitely check that out, because if people think she is only a one-trick pony, you just have to see St. Vincent to be proven otherwise.
So, she definitely has that capability. Jason Statham is used so hilarious in this movie. He had me cracking up the whole movie. Great use of him. Rose Byrne, like I said, proves that she's not on a fluke. She is really a great comedian actress, as well as just an actress in general, because she could bounce. She could be horrified and exciting and terrified and insidious, and then be hilarious in this movie. I really enjoy her. I think she is awesome. She was also a really, really nice person in person. She was a sweetheart. And Curtis Jackson, obviously 50 himself, has an appearance in this movie, which is funny. He's just cheesing the whole time. He's cracking up. It's a fun movie. I think that the issues I did have with it aren't very drastic, but I think the movie kind of does get a little bit too involved with the whole CIA thing, wanting to be triple crosses and double crosses and all that stuff, which, of course, is a staple in spy movies, but it feels that it kind of got a little bit too serious and wanting to be that spy movie rather than just kind of being goofy about it. And I think that the movie could have been a little bit short. I think 2 hours is a bit much. I think that you probably easily could have knocked out about 15 minutes of it, make it a little bit tighter, made me leave laughing rather than make me leave remembering how I laughed, if that makes sense. But overall, very effective movie. I think that it equally ranks up with Bridesmaids and Heat. I don't think he has touched Bridesmaid just yet. Yes. But I honestly think, that's tough, because I really did like Spy, but I think I'd still put the Heat above Spy. So I would put them in order as they've been released. Though I would say Spy is a close second to Heat. Well, obviously. Very nice. So the Spy is definitely far away from a Naked Gun type movie. Yes, because
that's a spoof.
No, man, it really is. It's not a spoof. It's not playing on certain scenes. It's not, referencing certain things. It's a comedy that just so happens that there are CIA agents. It's just more of a setting for these comedians. And I think people will enjoy it. Obviously, I'm not alone in this. Last I checked, this movie is sitting at like a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty awesome for a comedy. I don't know if it's still sitting there. But it's definitely a great movie. I wouldn't say I loved it to the point where it's a certified 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I definitely give it a solid rating, and you could read that rating at chasingcinema.com/spy. I think that's going to wrap it up for this week, Lou. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. What a way to end it.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tune back in next week as I talk about Jurassic World. Do 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 do. That's too fast. Do 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 do. That's the sound of footprints. Oh, footsteps.
Footprints.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes so each week episodes, you never miss one. And you don't even got to move a finger. Each episode is automatically downloaded to your iTunes account. It goes straight to your iPad, your iPod, your iPhone, whatever you're listening to these podcasts on. You can also head over to youtube.com, watch all of our video reviews that we do for movies, watch all of the trailer reviews that we do for movies, and each day we're doing 5 bits of movie news. 5 times a day I'm uploading on that YouTube channel, so make sure you're a part of that daily update of information. youtube.com/chasingcinema. We're also on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/ and Facebook. Facebook.com/ChasingCinema, Twitter and Instagram. You can follow us at Chasing Cinema. You can follow me on Instagram at Jacob Tiranno. All of our information is out there. Go to ChasingCinema.com, the hub of everything that we do. You could find everything that we do there. Make sure to register on ChasingCinema.com and have unlimited access to everything that we do. Almost out of breath. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jacob Tiranno. I'm joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louie Coruzzolo.
And please continue chasing cinema.